A carefully constructed narrative, a public display of defiance, a promise made not just to its people, but to the entire world. This is the story that El Salvador, under its charismatic, tech-savvy president Nayib Bukele, had been meticulously crafting for months. The claim was simple, audacious, and broadcast relentlessly across social media for all to see. We are buying 1 Bitcoin every single day. It was positioned as the ultimate testament to their unwavering faith in the digital currency they had famously and controversially adopted as legal tender. But what if it was all a mirage, a masterfully executed illusion? A stunning new report from one of the world's most powerful financial institutions, the International Monetary Fund, or IMF, has just dropped an earth-shattering bombshell that directly contradicts this entire narrative. The IMF's findings suggest that the daily Bitcoin buys, the proudly displayed public wallets with their ever-increasing balances, and the confident proclamations of digital wealth accumulation were not what they seemed. Today, we are pulling back the curtain on this incredible story of financial intrigue, political theater, and digital deception. What did the IMF actually uncover in its methodical official review? How did El Salvador allegedly orchestrate an illusion of accumulating wealth that successfully fooled crypto enthusiasts, seasoned journalists, and international media alike? And most importantly, why would a national government go to such extraordinary lengths to project an image so profoundly at odds with reality? We will unpack the damning report line by line, reveal the surprisingly simple mechanism behind the so-called purchases, and explore the immense, crushing pressure that likely forced the world's first Bitcoin nation into a precarious corner. This isn't just a story about cryptocurrency, it's a story about national sovereignty, international power dynamics, and the high-stakes game of political storytelling in our hyper-connected digital age. The truth is finally clawing its way into the light, and it is far more complex and fascinating than anyone imagined. Let's rewind to the beginning of 2025. Throughout the year, the government of El Salvador was a shining beacon of hope for Bitcoin maximalists and crypto evangelists everywhere. President Bukele, a master of modern public relations who governs as much through X, formerly Twitter, as through official decrees, orchestrated a powerful symphony of positive messaging with his national Bitcoin office. The core theme, repeated like a mantra, was the 1 Bitcoin a day program. This wasn't just a financial strategy, it was a potent political symbol. It suggested that no matter the chaotic fluctuations of the market, El Salvador's conviction was absolute. They were in it for the long haul, slowly, patiently, and steadily building their national treasury, 1 digital coin at a time. This powerful narrative was reinforced by what appeared to be tangible, verifiable, and misleading evidence. Public-facing Bitcoin wallets, whose addresses were shared openly, could be viewed by anyone on the blockchain, and they showed a consistent, day-by-day increase in their holdings. Government tweets and official communications celebrated these milestones. On March 4th, for instance, President Bukele himself posted on social media, personally reassuring his millions of followers that the daily Bitcoin buying program was still active and would continue indefinitely. This was a direct message from the top. Around that same period, the Bitcoin office triumphantly claimed that the nation's holdings had surpassed a staggering 6,102 BTC. This specific, precise number lent an air of irrefutable fact to the claim. The media, both within the niche crypto space and in the mainstream financial press, ran with these numbers unquestioningly. They were cited in countless articles, debated in podcasts, and repeated as gospel in investment forums. El Salvador wasn't just a quirky participant in the crypto market anymore. It was portrayed as a leader, a trailblazer, proving that a nation-state could successfully integrate Bitcoin into its very economic fabric. This was the perception, a carefully crafted image of unstoppable progress and diamond-handed resolve. But then, on July 15, 2025, the triumphant music screeched to a halt. The International Monetary Fund published its latest report, This wasn't a press release or a speculative analysis. It was a formal document created as part of its routine Article 4 consultation and the first program review for a massive $1.4 billion loan facility. An Article 4 consultation is, in essence, a rigorous financial health checkup that member countries undergo, and its findings carry immense weight. Buried within the dense, bureaucratic language of this report was a single, devastating sentence that completely dismantled El Salvador's meticulously built story. The IMF stated, with the cold, unequivocal clarity of an auditor, the overall stock of Bitcoin held by the public sector has remained unchanged since program approval. This program approval for the critical extended fund facility had happened all the way back in December of 2024. Let that sink in for a moment. The IMF, an organization with privileged, deep insight into the country's national accounts, was officially stating on the record that for the entire 7-month period that the government claimed it was buying 1 Bitcoin per day, it had, in fact, purchased 0. Absolutely no new Bitcoin had been acquired with public funds since the end of the previous year. The entire daily buying program, the narrative that had captured the imagination of the crypto world and solidified Bukele's image as a digital visionary, was, according to this official review, a fiction. The story wasn't just slightly inaccurate, it was the diametric opposite of what the IMF's data showed. The bluff had been called on the world stage. So the immediate glaring question is, how is this even possible? If the government wasn't buying new Bitcoin, how on earth did the balances in their publicly displayed wallets keep going up? Was the blockchain, the immutable ledger, somehow lying? The answer, as revealed by the IMF, is a classic case of financial sleight of hand, updated for the digital age. It was an illusion, but a cleverly executed one that preyed on the public's understanding of blockchain transparency. According to the fund, the steady rise in the visible Bitcoin wallet balances came from internal movements between different government-owned wallets. It was, in essence, a digital shell game. Imagine you have 2 bank accounts, a checking account and a savings account. If you move money from your checking to your savings, the balance in your savings account goes up. It looks like you have more money in that specific account, and you could even post a screenshot of it online to celebrate your new savings. But have you actually earned any new money or increased your wealth? Of course not. Your total net worth remains exactly the same. This is precisely what the IMF report alleges happened in El Salvador, just with crypto wallets instead of bank accounts. The government was simply consolidating funds, moving Bitcoin it already owned from various disparate wallets under its control into the main public-facing ones. This created the powerful appearance of new purchases and a growing national treasure chest, but it reflected no fresh market activity and, crucially, no new investment of public funds. The report also noted some small fluctuations in Bitcoin deposits within the government's Chivo e-wallet, but these too were addressed through internal corrective measures, not by injecting additional public money. Put simply, the story of daily accumulation was a theatrical performance, and the rising wallet balance was the meticulously managed stagecraft designed to make it believable. Not a single cent of taxpayer money was spent on new Bitcoin in 2025. This is an absolutely stunning revelation, a true deepfake of national economic policy. It raises profound and deeply uncomfortable questions about transparency and trust. If you're finding this breakdown of the IMF's findings as jaw-dropping as we are, do us a favor and hit that like button. It's a small click for you, but it tells us you appreciate this kind of in-depth analysis and helps us bring more of these hidden stories to light. Now, this begs the most important question of all. Why? Why would a government engage in such an elaborate charade? To understand the motive, we need to look at the immense pressure El Salvador was under. The country made global headlines in 2021 by becoming the first in the world to adopt Bitcoin as legal tender. It was a radical, populist move that alienated powerful international financial institutions like the IMF, but earned President Bukele adoration from the global crypto community. However, this bold experiment came with a hefty price tag. By January of 2025, the nation's fiscal position was described as fragile, a polite term for being in deep financial trouble. It needed help, and the entity it had to turn to was the very institution it had so publicly defied, the International Monetary Fund. In order to secure the crucial $1.4 billion extended fund facility, El Salvador had to make significant and painful concessions. Under immense pressure from these international lenders, the government was forced to reverse course on its flagship policy. It officially stripped Bitcoin of its legal tender status and, most critically, agreed not to use any more public resources to acquire the cryptocurrency. So the government was caught between a rock and a hard place. On one hand, it had to comply with the IMF's strict conditions to secure the lifeline funds needed to stabilize its economy. On the other hand, it desperately wanted to maintain its carefully cultivated image as a pro-Bitcoin champion for its political base and for the world. The alleged deception appears to be their answer to this dilemma. Quietly honor the binding financial commitments to the IMF while publicly spinning a narrative that kept the crypto dream alive. It was an audacious attempt to serve two masters, a dangerous game that relied on nobody looking too closely at the books. Until the IMF did. And the scrutiny doesn't end with the phantom Bitcoin purchases. The IMF report also casts a long, dark shadow over another cornerstone of El Salvador's crypto experiment, the Chivo e-wallet. This government-run digital wallet was launched with great fanfare, promising to facilitate Bitcoin transactions for the entire population and promote financial inclusion. However, the IMF report cited minor deviations in performance criteria, pointing to what it calls irregularities in the Chivo system. While the details of these irregularities are not fully spelled out in the public document, the consequence is massive. As part of its agreement with the fund, the Salvadoran government has now committed to fully and completely ending all public sector involvement in the Chivo wallet by the end of July 2025. This means the state is being forced to privatize its flagship crypto project, a clear admission that the state-run model has failed to meet expectations. This move is presented as part of a broader push for fiscal transparency and market discipline, but it marks a significant and humiliating retreat from the initial vision of a state-driven crypto economy. Furthermore, the government has also committed to unwinding the public Bitcoin trust, known as Fide Bitcoin, and has promised to start publishing detailed financial information for all state-owned enterprises. This is a clear push towards radical accountability, likely a direct result of the strict conditions imposed by the IMF loan. The era of opaque, state-run crypto operations in El Salvador appears to be coming to a swift and decisive end. So where does this leave the world's most famous and audacious Bitcoin experiment? The story of El Salvador is rapidly evolving into a cautionary tale, a complex saga of ambition, ideology, and the harsh, unyielding realities of international finance. We have a government that claimed to be buying Bitcoin daily, while the world's chief financial watchdog confirms their holdings were static. We have the grand illusion of national wealth accumulation created by simply shuffling digital coins between different pockets. And we have a government quietly agreeing to dismantle its core crypto infrastructure to satisfy international lenders, all while trying to maintain a brave face for the public. As the end of July deadline for privatizing the Chivo wallet approaches, the world will be watching intently. Will El Salvador follow through on its commitments to the IMF? Or will it find new, inventive ways to spin a narrative that is increasingly and verifiably at odds with the documented facts? This episode raises fundamental questions for the entire crypto space that go far beyond one small Central American nation. Can a nation truly embrace a decentralized, borderless asset like Bitcoin while remaining compliant with the highly centralized, rule-based global financial system? It seems El Salvador tried to walk this treacherous tightrope and, in the end, may have stumbled badly. The dream of a Bitcoin nation, at least as it was originally and so powerfully envisioned, seems to be fading, replaced by a more conventional and sobering reality of fiscal discipline and international oversight. The revolutionary zeal is being tempered by the hard truths of an IMF balance sheet, The final chapter of El Salvador's Bitcoin journey is yet to be written, and it promises to be full of more twists and turns. This story is a critical case study for any other nation considering a similar path, a lesson in the perils of mixing ideology with national treasury management. We will be here to track every new development and decode every new report. To make sure you don't miss our future updates on this and other crucial stories shaping our world, make sure you are subscribed to the channel with all notifications turned on. The intersection of technology, finance, and politics has never been more dramatic. And you won't want to miss what